I've never met the man. I have spoken to him on the phone, but I've never met him. A supposition, I guess, that Jim was aware of what Hillsborough was. He understood the nuances. He understood the atrocity, understood the disaster, and in doing so was perhaps better placed than some to investigate, to write about what was going on. But I would also, sorry, I beg your pardon.
Okay, no
I would also point out to your listeners that Jim's focus perspective has been primarily from an advertising point of view. It's not an advocacy of Hillsborough or an advocacy of Liverpool or an advocacy of the 96 families. It's just been primarily as to how the boycott campaign has affected Stephen Cohen from a advertising point of view. Jim writes in an advertising blog, as your listeners will see. And I just think he's not interested in writing about whether Xabi Alonso is going to go or stay, whether or not who's going to win the title next year. That's not where he comes from. He's more likely to write about who's the sponsor in the front of the shirt and what that deal means.
Jim has also published articles that are soccer related but aren't related to Liverpool. They're mostly about kit sponsorships. And Jim has given equal time to the other side. He has published direct quotes from Stephen Cohen and representatives of Stephen Cohen. To your knowledge, has there been other coverage in the campaign where similar connections or affinities have led the campaign to be covered?
Well, we have got, I'll say, right coverage, correct coverage, proper coverage from the Liverpool have been mentioned, I believe, at The Guardian in passing. As to regards, if you're talking specifically about mainstream media, Stephen Cohen got his side of the equation, shall we say. He got that out via the LA Daily News and via Jack Bell on the blog section of the New York Times. Both of those were, I felt, remarkably one-sided, that they didn't really look at us, or the reasons why we were boycotting him. He got a similar piece on NPR. They all came within a very short space of time.
Back to the campaign itself. Where do you see your campaign going from here now that Fox has landed another big blow?
Where do I see the campaign going, Richard? I see the campaign as vindication and justification for the 96 dead and the 96 families in Merseyside when we get Stephen Cohen off the air.
Are you open to the idea of reopening or continuing a dialogue with Stephen?
April 15th, 1989, 96 fans of Liverpool Football Club died on the terraces of Hillsborough. 766 fans of Liverpool Football Club were injured. In the last 3 years, for reasons best known to Stephen Cohen has decided to vilify, smear and lie about those fans. He has done it consistently, frequently and often. I have no understanding or expectation that on the 21st anniversary, on April 15th, 2010, that Stephen Cohen will indeed not be calling Liverpool fans murderers, scum of the earth, terrorists, Taliban and thugs. So if you could persuade me as to why, if somebody hits you in the face 5 times, why you accept his apology on the 6th time, I might be interested in listening to you. I would not be interested in listening to Stephen Cohen.
You don't see anything that Stephen can do, be it actions or a change of attitude, that would stop the campaign?
The man is a liar. No apology he has ever given has meant anything. Can you explain to me why I should believe anything Stephen Cohen has to say? If the man tells me that it's raining outside, trust me, the first thing I'm going to do is look out the window and put my hand out.
Well, I'll play devil's advocate here for a second, because we've talked about how Stephen's statements over the last 4 months have been lacking. I think the statement of 2 weeks ago that they released through the site was an acknowledgement that the May 18th statement was inadequate. If Stephen were to come forward now and show genuine heartfelt contrition to the point where he was not only accepting responsibility but perhaps reaching out in a true way to HJC and to Anfield, would that be something that you would consider at least something to take back to the committee and talk about?
Understand that my mindset, our mindset, not mine. Sorry, this campaign is not my campaign. This is the campaign of the LFC-NY. It's the campaign of Liverpool fans and right-thinking football fans from across the world. Our mindset is that everything Stephen Cohen says as related to this campaign is a lie. So that when he issues a statement on July 16th, as he did, expressing heartfelt contrition, I would encourage your listeners to read that statement and see how much heartfelt contrition is in that apology and how much finger-pointing there is about keyboard warriorism of anti-Semitic emails that there is. Stephen Cohen is just basically not to be believed. My supposition, my belief, my take, my philosophy is that Stephen Cohen's going to apologise right now. He's only doing that to save Stephen Cohen. He's not doing it because he believes it.
I want to talk a bit about proportionality at this point.
Indeed.
LFCNY has done a very good job of educating listeners and fans about Cohen's mistakes and the facts surrounding Hillsborough. I think United States football fans have a much greater recognition of what went on in 1989 and now know that they need to educate themselves. Stephen himself has now said that he's incorrect, although that took more time than I think any of us wanted. But LFCNY still wants Cohen off the air for the reasons that you cited. I want to ask you if you think that punishment is proportional and whether proportionality even matters in this case.
It's a very interesting question, Richard. My immediate response would be that Stephen Cohen's a platform on which to broadcast. He had to. He's lost one of those. With that platform, he has chosen to vilify, smear, lie and hate about Liverpool fans, the 96 dead, the families. You want to speak of proportionality. There are 96 families on Merseyside who's lost family members, and their only crime, those family members, was to support their team and go to a football match and be expectant of a duty of care by the South Yorkshire Police Force, and they didn't get that. And their crime for supporting their team was death. So is there an equivalency? I don't know. All I will point out to you is that Stephen Cohen thinks that these 96 souls, these 96 Liverpool fans, 96 of our fans, he seems to think that they're part of fair game and trade for banter, lying, smearing and hating. Stephen Cohen is with what he said about the 96, what he said about Liverpool fans. I just think that the man is just, I'm sorry, I'm at a loss for words here as to find proper words to describe him. I don't want him to have a platform to upset, insult 96 families in Merseyside any more than he's already done so. Has he not done enough damage? At long last, is it not time for Stephen Cohen just to go in the sake of decency?
I'm interested in your views on a minority of the show's followers having potentially this much sway over whether the show stays on the air or not.
I would take issue with your contention that the minority of the show's listeners. I don't listen to World Soccer Daily. I haven't done so for quite some time. I would point out that if, as you say, a minority of the show's listeners have as much sway, we don't have sway over World Soccer Daily. All we're doing is we're going to the advertisers and say, hey, you're giving this man dollars. With those dollars, here's what he's saying in your name and with your money. Mm-hmm. So if somebody else has a problem with what Stephen Cohen is saying, or if they like what Stephen Cohen is saying, they can take it up in a similar fashion.
Wouldn't it be another approach to target the listeners themselves and let Stephen Cohen's listenership dictate whether advertisers decide to re-up with the show?
Could you be a bit more specific, please, Richard?
Sure. Right now, the feedback loop that you're creating is to target the advertisers and that they then have an influence on the show, and that then affects the listeners. The other approach, which would probably be less effective, is to target the listeners and encourage listeners to make the same decision that you have and stop listening to the show, and then let that influence advertisers. And while that might be less efficient, it might be a little bit more democratic. What do you think about somebody who would propose that approach?
I would agree that it would be less efficient.